Breaking news, we are awaiting the release of the redacted affidavit, which led to the search warrant used at former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The affidavit expected to be unsealed within the hour. We will continue to closely monitor it, bringing you the very latest right here on National Report. Good morning to you and welcome to a brand new hour of National Report on your Friday. I'm Emma Reckenberg. Sean has the day off today, but thank you so much for joining us on this very busy news day. As mentioned, the deadline to see the redacted document used to justify the raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence is due within the hour. Our congressional correspondent Kilmeny Dukart joins us now live on Capitol Hill with the very latest. Kilmeny, good morning.
Emma, due in an hour, as you mentioned, but how quickly we'll be able to see this document and what we'll learn from it, we just don't know. Judge Bruce Reinhart, though, seemed to be content with the explanations that the Justice Department had provided for its proposed redactions. And again, that is set to be released at noon. In his order to unseal, Judge Reinhart wrote, "I find that the government has met its burden of showing a compelling reason or good cause to seal portions of the affidavit because disclosure would reveal the identities of witnesses, law enforcement agents, and uncharged parties, the investigation strategy, direction, scope, sources, and methods, and grand jury information protected by federal rule of criminal procedure." We know that the affidavit would obviously reveal the probable cause for those potential charges levied against the former president into classified documents that were retrieved as part of that unprecedented August 8th raid. But it could also reveal potential crimes, Emma, that are not directly related to the Justice Department's investigation. The former president, we know, has supported the release of the affidavit, but it was really a coalition of media outlets that initiated the legal fight. Trump, however, has filed that separate motion to appoint a special master to review those documents taken from his home to determine what can be used in this investigation and what can't. Last week, we saw Judge Reinhart release the application for the search warrant, revealing potential crimes, including the willful retention of national defense information, concealment or removal of government records, and obstruction of a federal investigation. This was not something that the Justice Department wanted. In, of course, that court hearing where arguments were happening, Jay Bratt feared that the releasing it obviously could compromise witnesses or provide a roadmap to its investigation. But as we've been discussing, and with so many other stories, Emma, on Capitol Hill, there are calls, especially from lawmakers here, to increase the transparency and accountability of the Justice Department, given the fact that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, had personally approved the raid on the former president's home, and a lot of accusations that we've been reporting on over the last few weeks that there is a pattern of political partisanship that has infected not only the FBI, but the Justice Department when it comes to the cases that they open and close.
Very interesting. Those questions remain. The White House maintaining, though, that they learned about the raid when news organizations were reporting on it. So that's fascinating as well. Kilmeny Dukart with the latest from the Capitol. Kilmeny, thank you. Joining us now, former Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Sir, thanks so much for coming on National Report. All right, tell me your thoughts. What are you hoping to learn from this redacted affidavit?
Well, the first thing I'm hoping to learn is how transparent is the Department of Justice going to be? And we're going to know that based on how much is redacted. And, you know, this Department of Justice, unfortunately, has lost really the benefit of the doubt in this case. And because of so many other cases involving President Trump where political motivations did play in to their case management. And so I'm going to look for that. Second, obviously, I'm going to look at the details that are revealed about this investigation so that we can learn what this case is based on, what they're hoping to do, and whether this is just them grabbing what they feel are presidential records or whether they hope to ultimately prosecute individuals, including Donald Trump. But I just continue to believe that there is no case to be made against the former president.
But for an Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to personally sign off on this search warrant, wouldn't you speculate that there is something really there beyond, boxes of classified documents that the archives wanted back? I mean, this is unprecedented that we saw.
You're absolutely right, Emma. This case from the beginning has been completely unprecedented. Never in our country's history has a former president had a search warrant executed on his house or really at all. In this case, because of the previous cases, whether it's the Mueller investigation, whether it's the way Hillary Clinton was treated, whether it's a continued, soft, hands-off approach to Hunter Biden, it just seems that there is a two-tiered system of justice. And so you're right, Merrick Garland, as Attorney General, cannot be trusted. But at the same time, he should be in charge. And I don't fault him for a high-profile case like this, wanting to be involved and making sure that the Department of Justice is doing it right. I just hope that, he's not pushing the Department of Justice to go where it shouldn't go.
I want to show you this Trafalgar poll. Kind of gives us a sense of how the American public are viewing this raid on the former president here. And it's split down the middle, essentially. Do you believe the Justice Department investigation into Donald Trump is only intended to prevent him from running for office in 2024? 48% say yes, 48% say no. Where would you vote? How would you vote, Matt?
Well, there's no doubt that if they're going to pursue a criminal case, the whole intention of that would be to try to disqualify him. But I think many people, including myself, do not believe that the statutes that would come into play in this case would ultimately disqualify the president. The Constitution lays out both the qualifications and the disqualifications to be president of the United States. Congress cannot amend that in any way. So I would expect that, if the Department of Justice goes the foolhardy route to try to prosecute President Trump, not only will they fail for lack of evidence, but they also won't accomplish their ultimate goal reflected in this poll.
And I believe we talked about at the time, too, when we learned that they were looking at retrieving those archives, that, taking those archives without permission, doing so illegally could be disqualifying for higher office. Does that also play into Donald Trump's future plans for whether or not he might run in 2024, whether or not he'd even be able to?
I don't think so. There's two parts to this. One is the statute. While it suggests you're disqualified from running for office, again, the Constitution is supreme on this issue. And second, if this is all about grabbing presidential records, including ones that are claimed to be classified, I think ultimately that question, since it's resolved and they have the documents, I don't know if this case proceeds. And so maybe these redactions will be lighter because ultimately this search warrant accomplished the ends of the investigation.
I want to turn now to some other unredactions that we received. The 2019 DOJ memo that deals with former President Trump and alleged wrongdoing in the Russia collusion probe. Former AG Bill Barr actually had this to say about the investigation's findings. Take a listen.
I don't think he was on top of his game. I think he made some very serious errors. I think it was pretty evident within a few months of him taking the position that there had been no collusion. But instead of stopping it at that point and letting the country move on, he took two instances which clearly on their face were not obstruction, and which even his final report doesn't try to argue were obstruction.
All right, that 2019 memo, and we got it in the summer of 2022. Matt, what did that tell you?
Well, I agree with General Barr. I mean, this was the problem with the Mueller investigation. He was appointed according to the regulations, which means you couldn't fire him without cause. And he did not live up, and his team did not live up to their prosecutorial duty, which was they were given a charge to find whether or not collusion had happened with the Russian government and the Trump campaign. They, within months, found that it hadn't. They should have wrapped up their investigation. The deputy attorney general who was in charge of the investigation at the time, couldn't call the question because you couldn't remove them or force them to conclude their investigation. The period of time where I was, supervising the investigation, the same thing. And Bill Barr even had the same problem. But, at the end of the day, the memo that was released confirms exactly what we all believed under the law. Those acts that, in the second part of the Mueller investigation, potentially obstruction of justice, nobody would have been charged for, a tweet or firing Jim Comey. And so these are the things that the left would always go crazy on their media about. But, ultimately, the rule of law in the United States of America still says that those acts were nowhere close to obstruction of justice.
All right. That is former acting AG Matt Whitaker joining us this morning on National Report. Thank you. We appreciate your time today.